Frankenstein's Aunt by Rune Pettersson. The Castle Kitchen the same evening. Well, Franz, Hannah Frankenstein, now you've seen what it looks like. What do you think? They were sitting with Igor in the kitchen after a second, very thorough tour of the castle. A wood fire was roaring in the fireplace, and Igor was standing hunched over it, stirring honey into boiling water in a sooty copper pan. Their shadows fluttered hugely over the floor and walls. Not a pleasant sight, said Franz. He pushed his glasses up with a thin hand and jerked his stool a little closer to the fire. He had a huge red scarf wound several times round his neck, and, against the red wool, his thin face looked almost transparently pale, like candle grease or cheap soap. His reddish hair was thin and fluffed up, and his nickel-framed glasses kept slipping down, the thick lenses misted and thumb-marked, giving the impression he could see over them better than through them. Mr. Franz, said Igor, would you like some honey water? He came hobbling over with a steaming tin mug. Thank you, Igor, very good of you, said Franz, cautiously accepting the scalding tin mug. And Igor, please stop calling me Mister. Just say Franz, that's enough. Mrs. Frankenstein? Said Igor, shuffling up to Aunt Frankenstein, who was sitting with her knees apart, leaning forward on a tiny stool and smoking a cigar. Would you like some honey water, Mrs. Frankenstein? Thanks, I'll stick to sherry, she said, twirling her glass round. And may I take this opportunity to request you call me Aunt instead of Mrs. I don't like all this bowing and scraping. No cringing in my house, if you please. I can't stand that. Certainly, Mrs., said Igor, bowing several times. I mean, Aunt Frankenstein. Good honey water, said Franz. Very good indeed, he blew on his steaming mug. Well, said Hannah Frankenstein, what do you think? It'll be a terrible job, said Franz. No doubt about that. He still had a picture of the derelict dining room at the back of his mind, and he shuddered as he thought of it. It had been a cloudy morning when he had first gone in there, and a gloomy gray light had trickled down through the shattered windows in the roof. Baron Frankenstein, deceased, Henry's father and Hannah's brother, had been an original man, and had chosen to have his dining room on the upper floor so that he could have his dinner beneath the sky all year round. But the windows had been in ruins for many years, and the rain and wind had sat at the table with very bad manners. The once beautiful room was now totally ruined, with cracked paneling and rotting floorboards, and there were bats hanging asleep like black pears in the rusting remains of the chandelier. On their second visit, which they had made that evening, the bats had been woken by Igor's lantern and had swooped around their ears with wings that looked like small brown umbrellas against the light. Franz shivered and took a swallow of honey water, forgetting to blow this time and burning his tongue. There's no doubt the castle is in a disgraceful condition, he said. Pah! He touched the tip of his tongue. Cleaning the place up would, said Hannah Frankenstein, and they could almost hear the great gloomy void at the end of the sentence. Is the laboratory in the same appalling state? Asked Franz, blowing his nose. The laboratory? Hannah Frankenstein sat bolt upright on her stool. Igor, you never showed us the laboratory. Oh, there's nothing much to see, said Igor evasively. Mr. Franz, would you like a little more honey water? Aunt Frankenstein had risen to her full height, and her now warm boots creaked as she steered a course for Igor. He saw that this was no time for honey water and hurriedly picked up his lantern. In this way, he whispered, hobbling up the stairs, but there's not much to see. And that's the end of that chapter.